Hello, everyone! Tonight we are standing in a hallway that was never built for walking forward. You're not sure how you got here, only that the mirrors lining both walls seem older than the house. You blink, and some of them blink back. Behind the glass, scratched faintly into the silver backing of every pane, is the same name, Eluathi. It's always misspelled, always backwards, and always watching. You probably won't survive. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I do here. Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is there. Now, turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's get started tonight. The first mirror in the house was never part of the house. It arrived wrapped in oilskin, shipped inside a pine crate that reeked faintly of seawater and iron filings left leaning on the wrong porch of a family that couldn't recall ordering anything. Your great-grandmother's handwriting is still on the shipping label, though she never lived in this house. Not this one. And certainly not in this city, which hadn't yet been founded when she died. It's a delicate thing. Oval, beveled edge gilt frame. The kind of mirror someone might kneel in front of just before plucking out a secret. One of those early French pieces maybe, though the design isn't in any known catalog. An archaeologist once traced the pattern of the frame and muttered, "That shouldn't be here." It reminded him of late Neolithic causeway enclosures, those prehistoric rings built with gaps too narrow to walk through, too wide to ignore. He left the house without looking into any other reflective surface. He walked all the way home using windows for corners. He mailed you a book wrapped in cloth and tape. The ritual use of bronze mirrors in Eurasian burial sites, and a single note "don't read aloud" near glass. You still haven't opened the book. That's not bravery. That's just instinct. In this house, every room has at least one mirror. Most have two. One guest room on the second floor has 17, if you count the lamp base, which you should. You've tried to remove them, but each one is wired, rooted into the plaster and lath like it grew there. Even stranger, every time you manage to take one down, a new one appears the next morning, installed in a slightly worse location. Just enough to catch your reflection as you turn away. The bathroom mirror, for example, used to hang above the sink. Then one morning, you found it bolted to the inside of the linen closet door, which you only opened when the lights flickered during a storm. It reflected nothing until you leaned in. You expected to see your face. You saw the name again. Eluathi. Always misspelled, always backwards, always written from inside the glass like fingernail scratches against the mercury. Sometimes it's fresh, sometimes it's faded. You've tried painting over it. Scraping, acid, frost film. The name reappears even when you break the glass. It just jumps. A friend once joked you should try replacing every mirror with obsidian slabs like the Maya did for their spirit gazing. You did try. The house rejected them, literally. The slabs cracked, bubbled, and hissed, until you found them in the garden soil buried upright like tombstones. One even had hair stuck to it. That was not the joke. Your best guess, if guesses count for anything in a house this old and this disoriented, is that Eluathi is not a ghost exactly. She's an instruction, a question, a memory that forgot what it was remembering. The name appears in Babylonian star charts, in half-legible scribbles on the back of Minoan ceramic shards, and most recently on your bathroom steam, always just before you forget why you entered the room. A linguist friend of yours once suggested that Eluathi might be a contraction of Elu to rise in Akkadian, and Eith, an archaic second-person pronoun found in early Germanic script. Loosely translated, "You who rise, like a call, or worse, a command." She laughed nervously when she said it. You haven't heard from her in months. Her academic profile is gone, and her office at the university is now a supply closet full of unclaimed boxes labeled "Silver Nitrate / Property of Archive." One of the boxes hums. Last week you tried covering every mirror in the house with sheets. It was a gesture. A little theatrical, but comforting. Until you realized you were running out of sheets, then out of curtains. Then you started pulling shirts out of your suitcase and napkins out of drawers and pillowcases off long dead beds. Still, the mirrors multiplied. And always eluethi. Just below the surface, a scratch so fine it moves like shimmer. You'd laugh, but the house might take that as permission. Some researchers still argue whether ancient mirrors were ever truly for vanity. Bronze and obsidian mirrors in burial chambers weren't angled for viewing. Many were face down. Some held ritual carvings or symbols for silence. One Sarmatian grave showed a woman buried face down on top of her mirror, as if keeping it from waking up. One archaeologist called such items gates to rehearsed memory. His colleagues said he was reaching. He reached too far into a dig site in the Altai Mountains and never came back. The locals said he walked into the fog with a piece of broken glass and asked it, "Where was I before?" He didn't wait for an answer. You found the same quote scribbled on a post-it in the attic mirror frame. "Where was I before?" Next to it in trembling script, Eluethi knows, the name is starting to follow you outside the house. In the frost on the windshield. In the glint of your phone screen at 3:11 a.m. In the corner of your glasses, though you don't wear them anymore. That's why the mirror above your bed always shows you sleeping with eyes open. You bought a hand mirror at a thrift shop yesterday. No frame, no backing. Just glass. When you brought it into the house, it sighed. That was the first time anything here made a sound. You haven't slept well since the sighs. It wasn't loud. More like a breath fogging the edge of a teacup. But it made the hallway shudder just a little. The lights dipped. The cat, who has never acknowledged mirrors before, hissed at a glass picture frame and hasn't come back down from the attic. You didn't know she could open the attic door. You've tried tracking which mirrors bear the name. It's never all of them. Just some. Just enough to make you wonder if the ones without names are somehow more dangerous. You've begun categorizing them by scent. Some smell faintly like cloves. Others like salt water, and just one smells exactly like the breath of your grandmother. The day before she died, a mixture of dust, cough syrup, and the word don't. The hand mirror still hasn't cracked, it hasn't fogged. It just follows you. Not physically, don't worry, this isn't that kind of haunting. No, it's worse. It appears wherever you set it down. Not moves. Appears. You left it in the guest room yesterday. Closed the door, walked downstairs, made tea, opened the fridge, and there it was, nestled between the jam and a bag of chopped leeks. You're not sure how it fits in your coat pocket either, or why it weighs more each night. It feels like it's collecting something, memory maybe, or light, or reflections that don't belong to you. Once you looked down and saw your face. It blinked twice. You didn't. There's a story you read once in one of those thick academic journals full of footnotes and disclaimers and warnings that only make things worse. It was about a mirror found at the bottom of a well in central Anatolia. Bronze burnished, delicately engraved with the shape of a house. Just a house. 4 windows, 1 door, and a chimney curling into smoke. When cleaned, the mirror didn't show reflections. It showed rooms. But not the room it was in. When held up in the kitchen, it showed a cold bedroom. When held in the bedroom, it showed a narrow hallway. When held in that hallway, the one the researchers built to replicate the view, it showed a field of mirrors. The mirror has since been reclassified as ritually significant and placed in a vault no one can open without getting locked inside. The door closes only once. One scholar suggested it should be buried again. Another asked if it had ever been unburied in the first place. The journal footnote said only, "No field site was officially listed. All drawings removed from archive. You made a copy of the image before it vanished." There, scratched faintly behind one of the drawn windows of the drawn house, is a word. It's hard to make out, but it starts with an E, ends with an I. You've stopped emailing museums. Last night, the kitchen mirror changed shape. It used to be rectangular, modern, frameless. One of those sleek sheets you clip to the back of a cupboard. But now it's rounded. pitted, black at the edges like obsidian scorched in flame. You tried touching it, but your fingertip bounced recoiled even as if the surface resisted your presence. When you looked into it, you saw the living room. Not as it is, but as it was: no furniture, all wallpaper peeled, fireplace cold. You stepped away, but the image stayed the same. You looked again, and your reflection was there, standing in the reflection of the room, not matching your movements, but standing still. Then it turned. It turned, but you didn't. You left the kitchen. This morning you made coffee without looking up once. You don't drink coffee. Some believe mirrors were once sacred tools for ancestral communion. Others say they were simply status symbols, reflective surfaces in a world without smooth ones. But ancient Roman grave goods often included bits of glass, and Egyptian tombs sometimes held polished bronze plates set at angles facing north toward the stars of Osiris. Not for vanity, for orientation, for remembering which way to go in the dark. A few scholars say that early reflective objects weren't meant for the living at all. One idea: the earliest mirrors were made for the dead. Polished stones laid over the eyes of corpses to keep them closed, or to keep others from looking back. If that's true, then what happens when a mirror forgets who it was made for, or worse, remembers? There's a thin frame of lead you found behind the radiator this week. Too small to hold a full mirror. Too heavy for modern glass. It had a name etched on the back, written in a kind of shorthand used by early 18th century midwives in France. An old woman's name. Not yours. Not yet. You've started hearing footsteps behind the mirrors. Not walking, shuffling. Like someone rearranging a room. Polishing the surface from the other side. You heard a voice once, faint, whispering, wrong face. You're hoping it wasn't about you. You once thought about moving, selling the place, breaking lease, starting over. But every time you packed a box, the tape peeled off by morning. Every time you reached for a suitcase, you found a mirror inside. Once you left town for a week. When you came back, the house had rearranged. The furniture was slightly off. The stove 1 inch too far from the wall. The ceiling fan lower. A thin layer of dust on things that had never collected dust before: your keys, your comb, the locket with your father's name inside. You looked into the hallway mirror and saw someone else remembering something. Not you, not quite. You've started practicing silence around the mirrors. Not just silence, but stillness. A sort of posture. You stand, the way the old statues do, hands folded, face soft, weight centered, because you read somewhere that early votive figures were arranged that way to confuse spirits. Not to ward them off, just to make them pause. Spirits, like predators, hesitate around uncertainty. You hope. The hand mirror hasn't moved today. It's just sitting on the dining table face down like a polite guest at an impolite gathering. You haven't touched it. You haven't needed to. You know what it shows. Not reflections, rooms, but not any rooms that exist. This morning, you glanced at its shadow, just the shadow, and saw candlelight flicker across a stone wall carved with handprints, not paint. Impressions. You counted 17, some too small to be adult. Some with only 3 fingers. One shaped like yours but curled at the edges like it was reaching out from underneath. There's a carving in the Chauvet cave deep in the Ardèche Gorge of France, over 30,000 years old. It shows a female figure with a bison head staring into a pond. No one knows what she's doing there or why her reflection was etched beneath her upside down. Some think she's dreaming. Others say she's entering. A few believe she's leaving. But the cave artist painted the scene twice, once on the wall, once on the ceiling so the shadows would mirror themselves when firelight flickered. One archaeologist referred to it as a prehistoric palindromic event. His colleagues disagreed. He left the site a week later. He said he saw the reflection blink before the torch went out. He wasn't holding a torch. You've begun whispering to the mirrors, not to test them, not even to provoke them, just to keep them company. It's easier somehow to feel like you're in control when you're the one talking. Sometimes you say things you don't remember thinking. Sometimes the mirror fogs. Sometimes it clears. Sometimes it echoes with a second voice. You joke with yourself. One of us will break first. But jokes in this house are like paper doors. They open both ways. You've counted 43 mirrors now. You counted 41 last week, and you don't remember bringing in any new ones. Some are subtle. The back of a spoon, a slick of oil on the stove's surface, a photo frame where the glass peels slightly at the edge, warping your smile into someone else's. And just one isn't a mirror at all. It's a window. It only reflects light when you aren't looking directly at it. It's in the hallway you try not to walk down after dark. Here's something strange you found in a museum guide from 1972. In ancient Etruscan burials, mirrors were occasionally placed face to face, believed to trap images between them. The note said, perhaps to imprison the final moments of the dead, or to create a space where time cannot progress. Scholars debate this interpretation. Some argue the facing mirrors were simply part of a forgotten cosmetic ritual. Others believe it was a trap, an ancient symbolic net for spirits. One theorist suggested the mirrors were meant not for the dead, but for visitors to the tomb. A warning. This is what happens when you watch too long. You tried placing 2 mirrors face to face in the attic. They haven't stopped humming. The cat still hasn't come down. Last night, the hand mirror reflected a house you've never seen. It was half buried in sand, wind-blown. The sky was copper-colored like it hadn't rained in generations. A single tree leaned out of frame. Inside the mirror, a figure stood at the window. You tried to look away. You couldn't. It watched you the way someone watches a child trying to lie. It wasn't angry, just very, very patient. You set the mirror down face up, covered it with a towel. In the morning, the towel was folded. The mirror was dry, but the table was covered in faint scratches. Not letters, just one long looping spiral. Not inward, outward. You're forgetting the layout of the house. Not in big ways, just subtle ones. A door where a bookshelf used to be. A light switch on the wrong side of the room. A window that shows a garden you don't have. You thought it was fatigue. But then you realize something worse. You're starting to remember the wrong things. You remember placing candles in corners you've never entered. You remember which floorboard creaks in a hallway you didn't know existed. You remember the name Eluethi written not on glass but in frost on a window from childhood. A childhood that had no such window. You call a friend, ask them to come by. Just to confirm things are still real. They arrive, stand in the doorway, look at the wall behind you and flinch. You ask what's wrong. They shake their head. Your reflection just mouthed something to me. You don't have a mirror behind you. You never did. You don't let them leave through the front door. You guide them out the back through the garden. Because you saw what the hallway mirror looked like as they arrived, and it wasn't reflecting the door at all. Just a long silent corridor of repeating windows, each one with a name behind it. Here's a joke you've started telling yourself every night before bed. If I fall asleep facing the mirror, maybe the reflection will wake up for me. You laugh. The mirror doesn't. But you still wake up every morning with your head turned slightly to the right. The mirror side. Your spine hurts. You didn't go to sleep that way. The mirrors are starting to hum in unison. Low at first. Just at the edge of human hearing. You only noticed because the cat came back briefly and hissed at the walls her ears, flat tail puffed staring at the ceiling. Then she climbed into the grandfather clock and has not reappeared. You check occasionally. Sometimes the pendulum swings the wrong way. You've unplugged everything tested for EMF. Even brought in a skeptical cousin with a physics degree and a passion for debunking haunted architecture. He waved a multimeter around, frowned at the readings, then went silent for 20 full minutes. When he finally spoke, it was to ask you if you'd ever heard of resonant visual feedback loops in silvered glass. You said no. He nodded too quickly, then left without saying goodbye. He mailed you a mirror the next week. Just the glass, no frame. It was already fogged when it arrived. You've begun noticing patterns, not in the mirrors, but in the names. It's not just Lullabies anymore. Some are partial. Variants. Anagrams. You spotted Lullaby scratched into the lid of a silver compact. Thealue on the inner frame of the hallway sconce, and once faint and almost too twisted to decipher Ithueli on the side of your tea kettle. They're all mirrors. Even the tea kettle, especially the tea kettle. The historian in you. You. The part that still wants reason starts pulling books off shelves. Not ghost books, linguistic atlases. Catalogs of pre-Indo-European root structures. You find something halfway down a text on Thracian cult practices. Some ritual masks included mirrored surfaces to reflect the name of the deity. Not to honor it, to hold it still. There's no deity name given, just a blank in the footnote. But next to the blank is a reference number. It doesn't match any in the bibliography. You flip to the final page. A mirror surface is glued inside the back cover. Cheap, modern, plastic frame. But faintly, just faintly, there's something scratched into the silvering beneath the top layer. You close the book. It creaks like breath. You remember your grandmother used to say that names were spells, but only when whispered. Not for power, she said, for binding. A loud name runs away. A soft name keeps close. You wonder now if anyone ever whispered Eluathi in this house, or if the mirrors began whispering it themselves. There's a tale from Sapmi mythology of a girl who stared into an icy lake too long and saw her name frost over. When she blinked, the ice cracked and her name was gone. So was she. But the ice remembered. The next spring it thawed, her reflection floated back up name first. You think about this when you find a puddle in the basement shaped exactly like your reflection's outline. It's not raining. The living room mirror is different now. You remember it used to show your whole body framed in wood, a little warped from age, but now it cuts off just below the eyes, no matter how far back you stand. The top edge seems to rise with you. Yesterday, you bent to pick up a book. In the mirror, your reflection stayed upright. You didn't scream. You just stood calmly, and walked to the kitchen. You've learned that mirrors like wasps react most to sudden motion. You made tea with your back to the kettle. Some researchers still argue whether the silvering used in ancient Chinese magic mirrors was meant for vision or illusion. These bronze mirrors you've read, when polished perfectly, could project hidden images onto walls when sunlight struck them just right. Dragons, tigers, forbidden letters, reflections that weren't visible on the mirror surface itself, only in shadow. Some of those images, once decoded, weren't decorative at all. They were maps of tombs. One included the diagram of a room with a single dot at the center. The character next to it translated roughly as "Remember me here." That same phrase, "Remember me here," was written in the steam on your bathroom mirror last night. You don't recall turning on the hot water. You've been speaking in your sleep. You set up a recorder after a friend told you they heard murmurs through the phone when you called and didn't say anything. You weren't aware you had called. On the playback, there's a voice not yours repeating 3 things. Don't blink in glass. The name will finish itself. One of you must be remembered. You have not slept since. Instead, you spend the early hours rearranging the furniture to avoid mirror lines. Somehow, every chair ends up facing a surface. You don't move them back. You've stopped asking why. You've started asking who. Tonight, the mirrors fog even though the house is cold. You didn't boil water. You didn't breathe near them. And each one shows a reflection of the same room, a nursery empty, except for a rocking chair and a small mirror hung too high for a child to see. The chair rocks. You don't have children. You don't have that chair. But you know the song that's playing softly in the background. You know it in your bones. Your grandmother used to hum it when she thought no one was listening. You never knew the words. But the mirror does. It sings them backwards, not loudly, just enough to keep you from sleeping. The house does not sleep anymore. You can tell. The air is taut like something holding breath. The floorboards don't creak so much as shift, realigning slowly, quietly, not toward you, but around you. Like the house is folding itself into a shape you won't recognize until it's too late. The mirrors have gone silent again. That would be comforting if it weren't for the fact that silence in this house means something is about to remember you. You've taken to walking with a small mirror held out in front of you, not to see where you're going, but to make sure the path behind you still exists, a kind of sonar for memory. If your reflection disappears, you turn around immediately and sit on the floor. You stay there until your name comes back. So far, it always has. So far. This morning, the name appeared on your skin, just below the collarbone. A faint shimmer, like condensation on glass. Aluethi. You tried to scrub it. It blurred but did not fade. You thought it might be a trick of the bathroom light, until you saw the same shimmer moving across the mirror. Not as a word, just a slow ripple as if the mirror were breathing in sync with you, and then subtly just offbeat. One inhale too late. Like it was learning. You opened the attic, not out of courage, just out of narrowing options. The cat was waiting at the top of the stairs. She blinked twice, then walked backwards into the dark. You've never seen her do that before. You've never seen anything do that before. The attic has no mirrors, only glass. Old window panes stacked in corners. Dusty picture frames, cracked lantern glass, the kind that holds light long after the flame dies. You catch your reflection in one sliver of broken frame. You're not alone. She's there, not behind you, inside you. Not watching, waiting. You mouth your name just to check. The reflection mouths something else. It's not a name, it's a location. You write it down. 3 words. Behind the nursery. You don't have a nursery. Not yet. But the walls do. You find it by accident or by surrender. A seam in the wallpaper on the 2nd floor. You pull gently. It unfurls. Behind it, a door. No knob, no frame. Just a square of smooth wood with a mirror embedded in the center. The mirror shows a room you've never seen, but it knows you. It shows you the rocking chair again, the high-hung mirror, the handprints, and now a child. Facing the corner, not moving, but their reflection shifts ever so slightly, like they're nodding to someone behind you. You turn. Nothing. The house is very still. You look back. The child is gone. Only the mirror remains. Some folklorists claim that spirits who forget their names become places. A forgotten soul may sink into a stone, a tree, a bend in the river, and remain there until someone says their name aloud again. Not to summon, not to banish, just to complete the loop. That's what the name does. It doesn't call her. It finishes her. And now you understand. She has been scratching her name not to return but to remain. Because the mirrors aren't doors. They're footprints. They don't lead to her. They are her. Every surface a syllable. Every shimmer a breath. Every glance a memory that wasn't yours until now. You place the hand mirror face up in the nursery that does not exist. You sit beside it. The floor is cold. The reflection shows only ceiling beams and a shadow that hasn't learned to move like yours yet. You speak. Once, Aluethai. The mirror does not fog, but the air around it does. The reflection shifts. It is no longer you. It is her. And she smiles not out of joy but out of relief. She is finally remembered. And you, well, you're still here, but you're not entirely sure where here is. You dream that night of a house with no mirrors, of silence so thick you could cut it with the edge of a reflection, of footsteps you don't take, of lullabies sung backward, of a name whispered into glass again and again until it no longer echoes. And in the center of the dream, a small child sitting beneath a high mirror, drawing spirals in dust, waiting for someone to ask, was this always your face? Always your... You wake up with a shimmer beneath your collarbone. You check the mirror. Your reflection is sleeping. It breathes slowly. You don't blink. You wait. She does. You exhale. Not relief, not fear. Just recognition. The kind that comes after the name. Somewhere behind every mirror, something breathes your breath with you. Not to take it, just to know it. To fold it like a memory and place it carefully between pages of silence. Not all names are meant to be spoken aloud. Some are meant to be traced over and over until the line wears through. Until a window becomes a door. Until a child turns to face the corner and finds they were always a reflection waiting to be finished. The house is quieter now, not safer, but quieter. As if it knows the name is settled. You still live here. You still sleep here. You still see her in the glass sometimes practicing your expressions. And some nights when the wind is just right, the rocking chair moves. But only once. Because she's not rocking anymore. She's listening.